So anyway, are we
Okay.
live?
We're
Oh,
live.
okay. That's fine. We'll cut that in post. Welcome everybody to Dancing Dragons Live, a show where you get to see me make the same joke every single week. But also, Dancing Dragons Live is Dancing Dragons Coaching Collective weekly live show where you get to hear. Wait, Alex is still on here. Where you get to hear from real coaches about real things that affect your real life. Now, Dancing Dragons Coaching Collective, you can find us at DancingDragons.CC. We are a brand new coaching collective. You can go to DancingDragons.CC right now and find the perfect coach for you. Okay. We have
No,
coaches that
don't
cover all
leave.
different kinds of
Wait till
niches and
after we're done.
specializations. What?
I told them not to leave. Stay here, listen to us talk, and then go to dancingdragons.cc.
Ben, open up another
Oh,
tab. Open up
yeah.
another
That's true.
Open
Yeah,
up a tab.
Okay. I thought you were talking to Alex.
No.
Yeah. So don't go there right now, or you could open up another tab and listen or something like that.
There
But
yeah.
you can check us out, dancingdragons.cc. We got all different kinds of coaches. We got coaches that do numerology to polyamory to leadership, character coaching. We got
Public speaking,
not mental health,
communications.
wellness coaching, public speaking, all different kinds of coaching. Anything that you're looking to do in your life, any goal that you have, we got people that can help you reach those goals. So check it out, dancingdragons.cc. The CC stands for Coaching Collective. So tonight's show on Dancing Dragons Live, we have a great topic. It's a topic that a lot of people don't talk about, right? And we're talking about news literacy. Now, it seems like kind of like a strange topic to kind of bring up on this kind of a show, right? Where it's like usually we're talking about philosophical things, or we'll do things on astrology, or we'll do like different kinds of concepts. News literacy sounds like a college class, but the problem is that colleges don't really teach it. I would say most people that have 4-year degrees have never even taken a media literacy class, let alone specifically news literacy, which is the most important subsection of media literacy. And when you do take a media literacy class, news literacy is like a 1 hour lecture within the whole class. So I'd say news literacy is probably one of the most important things a person can learn. And generally speaking, the public at large has never had any access to news literacy information. So that's why I wanted to do this presentation. It seems like it's more of like a societal level thing. Like, oh yes, it's a societal problem. You guys are coaches. Like, aren't you supposed to deal more with individuals? And I would argue that news literacy is an extremely important part of like an individual's life, right? So the news is part of your life, right? And even if you're one of the people that ignore the news for the most part, it's still like a part of your life. Current events is what's going on, and it's going to affect your mental health. If there's a lot of stuff going on in the world and you're hearing all these headlines, or you're seeing all these headlines, you're hearing all these sound bites of this or that, right? It can drastically affect your mental health. I've seen somebody lose a job because they misinterpreted a news story. I'm not
I'll
joking.
take it a step further, Elijah. These news literacy literally has life or death consequences. So if people were to lie about something, and this has happened before, I'm not going to get into too many examples, but if you guys are familiar with the old Vietnam War and the whole Gulf of Tonkin incident, they didn't necessarily tell us the truth about that. And that caused people to lose their lives. So being informed about something not only will affect you individually, but can change world events, and it's literally the difference between life and death. So this is a very, very important thing. That's the difference between maybe you standing up and doing something for yourself, or who knows, now your cousin's in Iraq, right? So it's a very important topic to go over.
Well,
and so
I'm
let's start
going
off.
to add to that.
Yeah,
I want to add to that because it's very hard to be literate with the news because everything is so biased. There is so much AI and exaggeration and literal fake news. Trump started it, And that, and unfortunately, it happens now. So you don't know what to believe. And going to a website like Snopes, they can't even cover everything right now.
Yeah.
And the mainstream media has a heavy duty trust problem, and the only other things around are CNN, MSNBC, Newsmax, Fox, and they are way on one side or the other. So it's very hard to find something that is in the middle.
Yeah, and you
Exactly.
know what? I would just take out.
Yeah.
I'm gonna throw it back to you, Elijah. But I will just see your bet and raise you, Coach Road. I mean, I would argue that fake news goes all the way back to William Randolph Hearst and before. But we're gonna get into that because that's what we kind of talked about this before too, about being a good consumer or trying to sell somebody something in a sales way, or maybe you're trying to sell yourself on a date. These people are doing the same thing. They're just trying to sell you ideas. I mean, if you go down the highway, you're going to see 1,000 different billboards and people are always trying to tell you something. These people have, as Coach Rona pointed out, have their biases and they're trying to sell you ideas. So it's important to not to be a smart consumer, just like you don't want to, invest, $2,000 in a new washer and dryer off Temu. Yeah, you might want to apply the same thing to your mental space. So Elijah, let's start off at the very beginning. What is news literacy?
Yeah. So like the key word here is literacy, right? And so literacy is like knowing how to read, right? So the literacy rate is actually like the actual knowing how to read the English language in America is falling drastically, and that's scary enough, right? News literacy is being able to interpret the news, right? So that's what we're talking about. It's being able to interpret and communicate, but we're going to be focusing mostly on of interpreting the news in this. Unless somebody goes on a huge tangent about communicating the news, we will probably get into some journalistic standards, but that's what news literacy is. It's that simple. It's just how are we interpreting the news? And in order to do that, it's kind of like learning English, right? It's like you have to know, like, well, sometimes, letters are silent, sometimes, like there's certain intricacies that if nobody tells you, like even like the most intelligent person would never know, and so it's kind of like you need somebody to kind of walk you through it. Like, oh, did you look for this? Did you look for that? I feel like the topic of news literacy, often a lot of people are like, I'm not stupid. I can understand what they're saying, and it's like, well, it's a little bit more complicated than that. And it's kind of like, it's like a code. It's like a secret code that if people don't point things out to you, even the most intelligent person might not even see it. It isn't like you can't ever pick up the code, obviously, through studying something for a long time, like intentionally. You could probably learn the code on your own, but it's just so much easier just to have somebody say, look at that. And then you go, oh, okay. So that's what we're talking about, news literacy.
And we kind of talked about it. Oh, go ahead, Rona. Sorry. When I thought you were raising your hand, but it was off camera, so I wasn't sure if you were telling silence.
I'm very close. Let me move back. That's right. Make your point, and then I will happily make mine. Go right ahead. Well,
I agree. I think it's important to, and I think I'm not sure exactly because Elijah and I have talked about this topic before, but he did mention he had this presentation kind of lined up and we've never honestly got into it. I agree with those points. So I'll let you, and I have my own points, but I'll wait till they come up a little more appropriately. But yeah, go ahead, Coach Rona.
What I have seen in my many years on this earth is that people assume what's on the radio, what's on TV, what's right in front of their face is true. And when they have an opinion, they will tend to want to listen to people who have the same opinion. There is something called critical thinking.
And it
is a skill.
You keep telling me about that. Everyone keeps telling me about that. What is that?
Critical thinking, in a word, is asking questions. How else, is this really true? How do I know this is true? what makes them, what makes this, how else can we look at this? So it's questions are key to everything. And when we are listening to CNN or Fox News or, whichever, I like to listen to NPR, which does lean a little left and has the left, right, and center show, which I really enjoy because I get to hear both sides. Fox News is now called, it's really Fox Entertainment, and they even say that. And CNN often makes people like they give them a script. This is basically what we want you to say. So no matter what side you're on, there's crap that goes on behind the scenes. And you also have to realize how reporters ask questions. They're very much like lawyers, isn't it true that this, and this? They will ask questions in such a way as to affect opinion, affect bias, and affect the truth. So you have to ask yourself, is it their opinion? Is it the opinion of the station? Is it a bias that they have? Is it your bias that you believe it? Or is it data? Is it the truth? And if it is, how do you know? And people don't do that.
Yeah,
and I think that's a perfect. I think that's a perfect, a silky segue, as you might say, right? So, I think it's a silky segue right into bias, right? Because that's at the heart of this. And here's the thing: like, a lot of people see bias as like a negative thing. And then I've heard some people say bias isn't negative; it's positive. And it's like, well, it's not that either. It's just a thing, right? And it's an undeniable thing. And the thing with journalism is that there's been this weird push in journalism to kind of like when you report when you're like reporting the news, you should attempt to report in the most unbiased way possible. But there's been this weird shift from having your news report be unbiased to journalists pretending like they have no biases. And it's just not true. It's a dead straight lie. Any journalist who tries to pretend that they are not biased is completely, you cannot trust anything that they say, right? And that's the problem, is it's become a journalistic standard for journalists to pretend like they do not have a bias. And so like me, like when I do things, I'll often just be like, well, I believe like this. And then I'll give people information. I do that even I don't even just do that when I'm on camera. I do that in my personal conversations because I feel like that's like I don't want to sway somebody with my own bias. So I'll be like, hey, listen, this is my worldview, but these are the facts that I see it, right? And then I'll even give like opposing views. Now, some people might say this, but I don't agree with that. I think it's like this, right? Like, and that's how I try to present information because I'm very conscientious about like manipulating people, right? But journalists like to pretend like they're like, oh, of course, I'm not like, you'll hear Don Lemon be like, I'm not left. I'm not. Why would you say I'm left? I'm not on the left. I don't know why you would say that. And it's like, dude, stop, just stop. Right. Like, so what I would say is that that's a very important thing. That's a very important factor, is that you can look at who's presenting it and how they're presenting it. And if they're presenting it like I don't have a bias, you're like, you should automatically be on guard. Like, oh wow, there's incredible bias.
I'm just gonna jump in really quick here, Elijah. You'll probably get to it eventually, but you just take so long, and it's like gnawing. No. But just by virtue of what someone chooses to report on, that's their bias, right? And so everyone has a bias, and I think to your point, yeah, we should be a little more open about what our biases are. Right. And we shouldn't pretend like, hey, I'm not this, I'm not that. It's a good point. But anything that you choose, you're saying, hey, my bias is that this is more important than another story. And just a general question to the panel. I don't care if they're a man, a woman, a trans, white, black, Asian. The reporters, they all have this voice. I'm Lakshmi Singh tonight. And they get to the point. I just always wonder if they're like, just like,
they get trained that way.
Or I wonder if they're like, I wonder if like they're in the bedroom talking dirty, like, hey, that's a great looking dress, honey. Can't wait to get you undressed. Like, I wonder if that translates. All right, sorry. Keep going, Eliza.
We digress.
Yeah.
Oh, we digress.
Yeah.
Well,
So no, yeah, and so, yeah, go ahead, Rona.
Some of these reporters may have an unconscious bias. They may think they are unbiased and it's totally unconscious. And then again, if someone's writing for Mother Jones, I'm thinking they have a very conscious bias, that sort of thing. So.
Yeah, and you know what? One more thing
But here's the
before we
thing.
go back
Yeah,
to
here's the
Eliza.
thing. Like, yeah.
Sorry, no,
ahead,
I just want to talk about real world results. I probably should have led with this one instead of something so political. But I mean, anybody that's familiar with Orwell's War of the Worlds, it was a radio drama that was played, and it was it was just a show, and it was about an alien invasion. And people across the country, people in New Jersey were shooting at water towers and all this stuff. So yeah, it's very important to have news literacy, so you're not out there shooting water towers and you're thinking there's an alien invasion. Because nowadays they have cell phones, and you're gonna look at you like, look at this dude, and you're gonna go viral for all the wrong reasons. So don't do it. This is why it's important to be news literate.
Exactly. And I think that now is a great time to have this conversation, because we're kind of in this weird brave new world, if you will, where like Rona used the term mainstream media, which is kind of how we're used to referring to, CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, NBC, whatever it is, right? But that, I think the better term now is legacy media for those outlets, because they're not mainstream anymore. They get a fraction of the views.
I was actually thinking ABC, CBS, and NBC.
Yeah.
Well,
so those are the broadcasting companies, and I was going to get into that in a little bit about the types of media. So they're broadcasters, right? But yeah, so like they, but like I was just going to say, like right now, it's the mainstream news media are podcasts. The vast majority of people get their news from podcasts, and it's not close. It's not close. Like some podcasters that you've never heard of. And I'm not talking about one or two. I'm talking about hundreds of podcasters that you've never heard of get 10 times more views than CNN. 10 times more. It's not close. So the idea that that they're like mainstream, it's like they're still mainstream in terms of they have more kind of widespread like notoriety, but like nobody actually watches them. Everybody knows like who I don't know, Wolf Blitzer is, but like nobody watches what he has to say because nobody cares what he has, but they know his name. So it's like this weird thing. Like if you're on CNN, you're on MSNBC or Fox News or something, you have more name recognition than the podcasters, but you have way less reach as far as messaging goes.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy, and it's for good. It's actually good, but then what you have to realize is, like 5-10 years ago, people would on the left would get their news maybe from CNN, MSNBC, Rachel Maddow, and then the right it would be Tucker Carlson and Fox or whatever. But now these people are going and listening to Joe Rogan, Jordan Peterson, or the Young Turks on the left, right? Or now this, and it's cool because the Midas touch is a huge one, and it's cool because you're seeing people divert away from these corporately controlled medias that have done terrible things on the left and the right, as Rona pointed out. But you still need that news literacy because some of these people aren't necessarily your friends either, and they have biases as well too. So it's important to, now that we're in this transitional phase, I think it's extra important to have some news literacy because there are some people that are representing these same corporations. Go ahead, Coach Eli.
And I just want, like, this is a perfect time to get into this topic too, of the different types of news, because you named some people that aren't news at all. In fact, most of the people you named are not actual news sources, right? So they're not news programs. Rachel Maddow is not a news program, right? She doesn't, but here's the thing, and this is why news literacy is important. Most people will watch Rachel Maddow and think she's the news. Most people will watch Tucker Carlson and think he's the news, but they don't even claim to be the news. There's this weird thing that, they're opinion people. They do news analysis, right? And even if you read the New York Times, if you're reading the New York Times paper and you got the actual paper in your hand because you're an old soul or you're a hipster or something, right? And
I usually have my New York Times open with my matcha and my labubu, and my piece of feminine literature.
And
It's
Will
like
and I
90
are,
degrees outside, but you got a scarf
Gen Z.
on. Yeah. But the point is, right, is Will bought a pipe too that he uses like loose leaf tobacco in.
Very distinguished.
You can tell by the glasses.
He's got a jacket with like elbow patches on it too.
They're tweed elbow patches.
Right.
Yeah. So, but yeah, let's say you have the actual New York Times, because you do the crossword, and you have the actual New York Times paper in your hand, right? And you're reading it. There will be different sections. They'll say news analysis, and what's the word for opinions? I can't believe I forgot the term. There's a op-eds.
Op-ed, right?
Yeah, right. And then you have op-eds, right? And so what will happen is people will, and you see this all the time, and a lot of times it's even people I agree with politically will like make a post like the New York Times reported this, and they're posting an op-ed, and it's like, not really. They let this person say whatever they wanted, I guess, but that's not them reporting it, right? But here's the thing: is that I think that there's like a big criticism to be had here with general news media, because this is accepted in educated journalistic circles. Like, yeah, you're allowed to do this because you're telling people that this isn't the news. But the fact of the matter is that if you are a news outlet and you're putting this stuff out there, 99% of the people reading this have no idea that this is not the news. They have no idea that this is somebody's like heavily doctored opinion that they're posting here, right? Like, especially the news analysis things. Like op-eds are one thing because that's like literally like opinion and those things. But like the news analyses look like the news. They really do look like the news. And a lot of people, even people that understand the whole op-ed thing, don't even realize that news analysis exists. They literally think it's just the news. And it's just not the case. Coach Alex, you jumped on. You got something?
Can I add one thing? You guys are doing good. I was just listening. So one thing I've noticed, and I don't want to derail the conversation, so we can skip this if it's too much. But one thing I noticed is that when you read the news, it seems like it's always a week behind. Meaning, it's like Elijah said, it is entertainment, but it's not useful, right? It's not really information. If you want to beat the curve, if you want to be actually informed in a way that's not reactive but more proactive, right? You want to be ahead of the herd. If you're really not getting ahead of the crowd, then there's really not a point. You're just being fed information to be used by someone else, right? But if you want to be proactive, I think you have to read news sources and get your information from a place that's actually ahead of the curve and not being watched by everybody else, right? If you're seeing the same thing and learning the same thing as everybody else, by definition, you're not going to get ahead. So you have to find news sources that are going to give you information that's like, the beat on the street or whatever you want to call it. So that's what I would say is a proactive approach, right? But I guess first you have to recognize the problem. The problem is that you're being passively entertained instead of informed, right? And that passive entertainment is it's like a dopamine, what do you call it when you go to the doctor and they give you like a feeding tube,
it's more like junk food, it's not healthy for you, it's instead of eating your vegetables, you're like eating a whole bunch of potato chips,
pretty much. So I'll drop off, but I would say, one thing to explore is how do you actually get information that's, not going to go through a million filters and it's going to lead to somewhere where you get, information ahead of someone else. And it is a race, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll let Coach Eli take this, but I wanted to interject since you brought it up there, Coach Alex. I used to do a few different radio shows. One of them it was on midnight every night for 2 hours. And every day for an hour before, I would go through every piece of the news. I would go through New York Times. I go through the LA Times, Chicago Tribune, ABC, NBC, Fox, MSNBC. Then I go to Young Turks, InfoWars, everything mainstream and not mainstream. And then they're all, a lot of them are telling the same, they're talking about the same events, but they're saying from a different perspective and have different biases. So one, I go in understanding, hey, InfoWars is this, hey, Fox News is this, right? Chicago Tribune is this. I go and I try to get as much information as possible. Then there are people that are just regular content creators that aren't the news that I'll go and I'll check their information. But I think the best thing that you can do is, it's great to get a piece of information from the news. This country did this to that country. Cool. You should go look up a whole bunch of sources, get as many differing opinions as possible. And then the best thing that you can do, though, is do your own research, do your own homework, right? So a lot of times the reporters are just saying this happened and this happened. Well, one, we don't even know if that's true or not. And two, like they'll say, they'll have a video, they'll have a tweet, they'll have a book, they'll have something embedded sometimes in it. And that's the information. You go to the source of the information and keep asking questions. But yeah, go ahead, Coach Eli. My apologies.
Yeah, no problem. And I just, before I lose track of this, because I really wanted to point this out, because this is an important point in it. It's like, when identifying what kind of news or news media you're consuming, right? Whether it's news or if it's news analysis or if it's an op-ed, right? I think it's important to realize that there's a dearth of actual journalism going on outside of mainstream or legacy news sources, right? There's just a complete dearth, right? So, like most people, the source of news that they get on like these podcasts, those podcasters don't do their own research. They don't do their own journalism. All they are news aggregates. They read the news from Fox News, they read CNN, and then they gather all that information and they just give you their own spin on it, right? But they're not actually doing journalism themselves. So they're not a news source, right? And then so that's really important. And then another thing that's important is like the types of news that you have, right? So like a lot of times, and again, this is so embarrassing, but this year, a girl on CNN didn't realize that they were not regulated by the FCC. Like she didn't know that. And it was really, really embarrassing. So what happened was there was I forget what that argument was about. Oh yeah, I think it was about the 60 Minutes interview with Kamala Harris. That's what it was. Right. So, but basically, I think 60 Minutes is ABC, right, Rona?
CBS.
I don't mean to put you on the spot.
I think it is CBS.
I think it's CBS.
CBS.
I think it is CBS.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's one of those. Yeah, it's one of those. So basically, all right, you have NBC, ABC, and CBS, right? Those are the three main broadcasters, right? And so those people have broadcasting licenses from the government, right? So basically, the government was like, hey, you guys, as long as you guys provide news, because back when TVs ran on airwaves, right? Only so many people can have it, like a radio show, right? So they said, you guys get this special treatment where you get these radio waves, like you get this airspace for your television programs, but you have to provide news as a public service in order for you to have sitcoms and all these other things on your network.
And they had to be objective. Yeah. They had to be.
And they had to be objective. Yeah. So if they were not down the middle, they could get in trouble. And that's the FCC regulates.
I'm going to do, I'm going to do, just so the people that may learn differently, I'm going to do a historical reenactment of what happened. Hey, we're the government. How's it going? I'll tell you what, if you guys never tell on our war crimes and all the trafficking and all the bad stuff, I'll allow you to broadcast the media. How's that sound? And they were like, yes, master, whatever you say. We'll do whatever you ask.
It wasn't quite that bad. It wasn't quite that bad.
Yeah, all right. So
Walter Cronkite never had independent. It's all about objectivity, and we'll talk about that as soon as Eli finishes his point.
Yeah, so I just want to say right now what CNN is. So CNN, and if you've watched Anchorman 2, right, which is an absolute fantastic movie. By the way, Anchorman 2 is much better than Anchorman 1. I'll fight you. So Anchorman 2 is fantastic because it's not only just as funny, if not more funny than Anchorman 1. And Anchorman 1, I hold in very high esteem. And I'm not even a Will Ferrell fan. I don't even like the guy, but those two movies are great. His best movie is called Stranger Than Fiction, though. Fantastic. Him and Megan Gyllenhaal. Great. Anyway, so
Bring it back.
I
Bring it
digress.
back.
Yeah, I'm bringing it back. I'm bringing it back. So, Anchorman 2 is they're basically making fun of, and it's a very salient film, right? Because they're talking about how CNN destroyed news, right? And now the company that he starts working for is called GNN. But basically it gets started because he's like a local, if you have never seen Anchorman, he's like the local anchorman for the news. And he gets this idea in Anchorman 2, like, why do we have to like tell the news when we, like he gets this great idea with, and like all their, like they were just trying to make it more entertaining, right? But he's like, yeah, like we're not going to tell people why America is bad. We're just going to tell people about how great America is. We're just going to do this and we're going to do that, and we're going to talk about puppies. And we're going to just have all the, and so he starts sensationalizing the news and making it all this like feel good, non-newsy stuff. And then CNN is the first like in the movie it's called GNN, but they're pretending to be CNN. So they're going to do a cable news network. Now, cable news is not regulated by the FCC. You do not have to be objective, right? It is a totally different standard. Right. And which is how the girl on CNN totally embarrassed herself, because she brought up how like this wasn't like that like somebody at CNN could get like attacked like the people at CBS or something. And then like they were like, no, like this isn't an FCC thing. Like, and, oh yeah, that's right. She was bringing up how like Joe Rogan needed to be regulated because, and then like he was like, well, we're not regulated. And she was like, what are you talking about? We're regulated by the FCC. And he was like, no, we're not. Like, it's just not the case. Right. So, but the point is though, is that like, it's important to understand that. Like, so when you watch NBC, CBS, ABC, I don't know, there's 4 of them.
Fox.
I always mix them up in my head.
Fox is the other.
Oh yeah. And Fox. Yeah, that's right. Fox.
I used to sell.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you watch all of those, like, like those are actually more grounded because they are like, if they step out of line, they can get fined, they can get sued because of that. And then you can see like they could theoretically lose their broadcasting license for something like really bad that they do. Like recently Trump has threatened to take away CBS's broadcasting license because of the 60 Minutes interview thing that they did with Kamala Harris. Right. So so that's the whole thing. Right. So like I just wanted to point that out because a lot of people don't realize that the cable news networks are in the Wild West. Like they just do whatever they want. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I prefer that kind of system. I prefer that the audience holds the people to the fire, not the government, because like Will pointed out so keenly, that if the government's holding your feet to the fire, that means that you can't say anything bad about the government, right? So I prefer that system, but you have to understand that when, as part of news literacy, is understanding that fact that when you're watching NBC, it's totally different. Not MSNBC, like it's totally different than MSNBC, who's completely not regulated, right? And so that's where you get it. So anyway, Ronan, which subject did you want to go to? I forgot what it was a good one.
Well, I wanted objectivity, and the fact that yeah, because here's the thing, you know how we all know in advertising, sex sells, and
what does come up here every night?
Huh?
Why do you think our ratings dropped so low when you were gone the last couple of weeks?
There we go. Good answer. Good. I'll give you $10. All right. Anyway, so that's right. Yeah, get it. Emotions sell. People buy with their emotions. So these broadcasters, they know that if they get the watchers or their audience riled up, they are going to talk amongst themselves. They're going to keep watching. Yeah, and it's like, let's get the pitchforks and look for Frankenstein. There is no objectivity. They want to get their people emotionally involved, so they will watch more and longer and write letters or just get more involved with it. And that's part of the reason why this country is so divisive, because they're both sides are doing it on purpose. And can I tell a quick story?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
So
Yeah, go ahead.
my friend Thane Rosenbaum is a law professor. I may have brought him up. He teaches at Touro University, and he goes on a lot of different media. He's been on CNN, he's been on Newsmax, he's been on MSNBC, he's been on Fox, because he speaks word of law. He will not go on CNN anymore because they were like, well, this is what we want you to say. I'm not going to say that because that's not word of law. So go back on. And he's a Democrat. And, even on Newsmax, he said, he's like, if they're going to ask me, heck, if they're paying him to go on, he's going to go on and answer the question as they actually, I don't even know if he's a Democrat anymore because, I used to be, and now I'm an independent because he and I are both Jewish, and the extremes are anti-Israel. So that's an issue for me because I don't want them to kill me. So yeah, I have an issue with that. Anyway,
we don't want anybody to unalive Rona for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
I have so much more coaching to do, and I freaking teach play. Don't.
Yeah, seriously.
I'm very smart, and I'm humble. But so it's getting your emotions riled up to a point, that emotional intelligence is being aware of your emotions and how other emotions affect you and other people. I always say it's an oxymoron because the more emotions are involved, the less intelligent people tend to be. And it's that objectivity that we need in order to, to ask those questions that critical thinking brings.
Yeah, totally agree.
And Will, before you jump in, I'll let you finish here. But sorry, I've been talking a lot about Taylor Swift and Kanye recently. Anyway, this kind of brings us to yellow journalism. Now, I know if Will wants to go over. Will already alluded to the beginning of yellow journalism with what's the guy's name? William Randall Hirsch and the other guy that So, Will, did you want to go over that real quick, or do you want me to do it?
I mean, I got a couple things I'll say real quick, and then I'll just throw it back to you. But we've all heard the phrase, if it bleeds, it leads, kind of to Coach Rona's point. The most shocking emotional thing is going to go first. Unfortunately, it'd be nice if they were like, oh, hey, this massive economic thing that's going to have, but it's a whole bunch of numbers and nerdy. They're not going to lead with that. But, some heart warming or terrible tragedy, they're going to be like that. Because at the end of the day, they're here to make sales. They're not, I mean, it would be cool to think that, hey, we're just going to start off this company just to inform people thoroughly and not make any money. Great idea, bad business, right? It's not going to work. So keep in mind that they're selling you something. And then, I mean, I don't know if you guys have ever seen the videos where it's different news anchors from different affiliates of different, it could be NBC, some of them could be CBS, all over the country, reading the same thing off the teleprompter. This is a threat to our democracy. This is that. They're reading the same things. It could be ABC, NBC. It's crazy. But yellow journalism, I mean, that's a term that was used in the early part of the 20th century because, the robber barons and their bros, they grabbed some newspapers and they were just basically reporting on what they wanted. What would be sensational and what would help their business interests. And a lot of it was false. And a lot of it also got us, and one particular series of stories got us into a war, right? So that's why, I mean, this isn't the first time it's happened. Like Coach Rona is saying, yeah, now it's really bad. But I mean, we got into wars over people lying about news a long time ago. That's why this is something that's pretty near and dear to my heart because, I mean, Elijah was talking about this it's important, but it literally can change and be the difference between life and death. But yeah, go ahead, Coach Eli.
Yeah, and just to put a face on that, it's called I think if you YouTube something like Sinclair's Soldiers and Trump's War on Media or something like that, you'll get that video that you allude to. And basically what it is, it's like literally like, I don't know how many local news channels, all of your local news anchors reading the exact same script about fake news. And it's really scary. And the way that this person did like the super cut of it is it's like he does it in a way where it's like they're talking about themselves, and it's like the guy did this and like they're all like, you just see like each news anchor like one after one be like, this is a danger to our democracy. This is a danger to our democracy. This is a danger to our democracy, right? And it's like you see all these news anchors put their own newsy spin on it, and they're all doing their own, they're all adding their own riz to it and everything. But here's the thing that really gets me about that video. Like one of the last faces you see is because I'm from Rhode Island, is the Rhode Island guy's face doing it. And it's like, it's like, that's my news anchor. Like when I was a kid looking for snow days in the morning, that was the guy that was on the news. And he's part of it. Like he's part of this group of news of these supposed journalists who all got the same script, and they were like, "Read it, monkey." And so it's a crazy world. And again, I really want to make sure that I'm saying this is I'm not just here to criticize the legacy media. Any like kind of principle that we're talking about here applies just as much to podcasters or anything else, even more so sometimes. Again, podcasters run on clicks, right? So they're just as susceptible to this yellow journalism. Like they're just as susceptible to this sensationalization. Yeah. Like they get paid per click. At least a lot of the news people, they don't get paid like literally per click, you know? So it's like, if they can have like this crazy headline with this crazy thumbnail, and you might think like, you know, whatever's about to happen, and it's really stressing you out. And then if you actually stopped and watched the whole video, you'll find out, oh, there's not a whole lot to back up that headline or that thumbnail. But yeah, anyway, so just to say the history of yellow journalism, and this is to me, this is something that's like, that kind of hits deep, especially if like you want society to have like, you know, these institutions that promote things or whatever. So basically the history of yellow journalism, and yellow journalism is this idea of sensationalizing the news to get more eyes on it, to sell more newspapers, or to get more clicks nowadays, right? And so that's the idea. And so one of the, there was kind of this yellow journalism war in the late 1800s. And it was between William Randolph Hearst, I think that's his name, and this other guy. He really topped it though. Like this guy, he went above and beyond. So a U.S. military ship blew up in the Caribbean. It was called the USS Maine. Mm-hmm. Okay, the USS Maine, and nobody knew why it blew up. And his headline of his major newspaper in New York City, the World News, said, USS Maine bombed by the Spain? ? With no basis in reality, just like, hey, did they bomb us? Like, and that was his headline for it, right? And to this day, a lot of people believe the Spanish-American War was started because the Spanish bombed the USS Maine, but it's not true. Like USS Maine blew up because there was like an oil leak or something. But fake shit. No, the ship was real. I'm pretty sure. Unless you know something I don't know. Like the ship was real.
I was doing Commander William Riker from Star Trek when he was on the Unexplained show, when he was like, fiction. It never happened. That's what I was doing.
Okay.
You went to Penn State.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And by the way, so this is the thing that hurts your heart when you hear this story, because you're like, oh, okay, bad journalists are bad journalists. What you gonna do, right? The name of that journalist, Joseph Pulitzer. So today, if you're a really good journalist, you get the prize named after him.
And I'll take it a step further, right? Because there are, and also William Randolph Hearst is probably one of the other names. It's Pulitzer and William Randolph Hearst, that are the two names most synonymous with yellow journalism. It happened, more widespread than that, but those are the two most known. And to this day, there are still media corporations that are run by Hearst. The name is still under Hearst. And I wanted to get this off before the show ends, and so I just want to talk about a little. I'm going to go through a brief 30-second story of how controlled our media has been in this country. In 1925, J.P. Morgan, it's entered into the congressional record. He asked what percentage of American newspapers he would have to purchase to control what Americans thought daily, and the answer was 25 to 33%. Maybe something up there. And then in David Rockefeller's autobiography, Memoirs, that came out in 2002, he talks about his experience in the Army and when he met William Paley. At the time, William Paley was the head of the psychological warfare department for the Army. He went on to found either NBC or CBS. And then you have, to this day, NBC, which is situated at 30 Rockefeller Plaza. And if you're not familiar with the misdeeds of some of the people living in the Rockefeller family, I would suggest you go do your homework. They're not exactly the most righteous people of all time. And then fast forward a little further with the church hearings. If you're not familiar, the church hearings were Senate hearings over the CIA and the intelligence boys. And they were doing all sorts of weird, terrible, atrocious stuff. And one of the things that came out was this thing called Operation Mockingbird. And what Operation Mockingbird was, the CIA was like, hey, even though we're not allowed to operate here on United States soil, that's, first of all, the CIA itself is completely unconstitutional, but then it says we're not allowed to operate on American soil, but then we're going to bribe and put journalists in positions spending over $1 billion of today's money in the 60s. So the CIA had journalists there, and they were influencing journalists from the 60s. And then you fast forward to today, and you got 5 or 6 corporations, and some of these corporations haven't been our best friends either, running everything that we see on TV. So it's important to be very skeptical. One of the things too is that we haven't touched on is, like, besides biases, who's financing this, right? We can talk about it in certain scientific studies, but who's financing some of these stories? I mean, I'll just give one more example. General Electric, the former parent company, I believe they're still the parent company of NBC, didn't pay any of its taxes and was involved in some shady stuff. Do you think it was reported on NBC? Absolutely not. So go ahead. That was my rant end scene.
Anyway, yes. So, I mean, there's a lot to go into. I think that generally speaking, though, Coach Will, people already don't trust the legacy media as their news source, right? And so part of what I wanted to go over today, so yes, all of those are good reasons why they shouldn't trust them. But I do feel like the tide has shifted where most people just see them and they're like, oh, okay, whatever. And that was actually something that was very profound in my life. I was talking to somebody from China, and I was asking them about, like, it's going to be kind of nerve-wracking living in China, with, like, the government and stuff. And I was like, asking them about how society is and how they view the government. And, like, because the government, there's only one party in China, if you're not familiar with it, and you're not allowed to criticism. They don't have elections. Like, it's so I was asking about that kind of life situation. I visited China, by the way. It's absolutely fantastic to visit. Amazing food for dirt cheap. It's really, really great visit. It's a little scary to go there, but it's really cool. The crime rate's really low. You're just worried that the government's going to do something. But anyway, I digress. So I, like, asked her, I was like, like, how is that, like, being in a society like that? And she goes, I don't know. I don't think it's that bad. She was like, for instance, in China, when we watch the news, everybody knows that it's government propaganda. But in the United States, you guys think it's the news. And it's like, oh, wow, it kind of hit. I was like, wow, she nailed that. I was like, and again, this is kind of old now. This is a 10-year-old conversation. So things have changed a little bit. But still,
Not
like, I
here.
thought that was a really good point she made. She was like, everybody in China knows it's the government's propaganda, but you guys still think it's the news. And so I was like, wow, all right, touche. So, but anyway, here's what I would say is, I know we got to kind of wrap up pretty soon. We got to do this topic again. We barely got into some of the topics that I wanted to get into, but
We didn't even talk about Rupert Murdoch. That's a
yeah,
whole
all right.
thing in
Yeah,
itself.
we didn't talk about Rupert Murdoch. We didn't talk about
We didn't talk about how the mainstream news covered up and helped lie about weapons of mass destruction. We didn't say how they covered up the largest. Yeah. Okay, we're gonna keep it. But yeah, go ahead, Coach Eli. And this is why and if you take anything from this episode, it's do what I do. Forget being skeptical, keep an open mind, getting as many sources as possible, and going through the independently verifying. Forget all that. Do what I do.
Ask questions.
Forget all that. I just listen to Larry the Cable Guy's podcast every day, and I'm completely informed. So
Perfect.
just save yourself some time.
Right?
I don't know if he has a podcast, but if he should. I'm kidding. Go ahead, Coach.
No, and you know what's funny is like I think I've really got my Facebook algorithm just right, where if it's an important news story, I hear about it in 2.5 seconds, and if it's not important, I really don't hear about it very much. But like even then, it's like, you know, you can't rely on that kind of stuff, because as we saw with like the Twitter files and all that stuff can be heavily doctored very, very quickly. So so again, the whole point of the whole thing that I would like to like the big takeaway here is like, well, there's a couple from this episode. I would say is understand that everybody has a bias, including you. It's not a good thing or a bad thing. It's just a thing. Okay. But understanding it is very important when trying to actually understand what you're looking at. If you cannot tell where the bias is in it, that should be a red flag. If you're like, wow, this is completely objective journalism, you should be like, wow, either this person's an angel or I am just blind to this bias here. Right. And so you should be able to figure that out. So definitely look for that. So that should be a red flag. When you see something you think is objective, typically it's something that you should probably be even more skeptical of. And then there's a few things. Watch out for deceptive headlines. Look out for malicious editing and quoting, right? Like this happens all the time. I think one of the most famous examples is in Mitt Romney's campaign ad. He had a clip of Barack Obama saying, now is not the time to talk about the economy. And Barack Obama's full quote was, don't let anybody tell you now is not the time to talk about the economy. That was like one of the best like malicious editing things that have ever happened. It was fantastic.
That's very funny.
That's hilarious. That's bad.
People suck.
Yeah, it's so bad. It's so bad, right? Watch out for cherry picking, right? And so this happens a lot where you'll get they'll choose a portion of the story or a topic about like a thing, but they won't report something else, right? Like if it's like if like me and Will got into a fight and like you saw a headline that was like Coach Eli punches Will in the face, you know, it's like, but it doesn't say like that Coach Will punched me first, you know, like that's just cherry picking. And it's like, yeah, we didn't lie. Coach Eli did punch Coach Will, you know, but you're not telling the whole story. And that is rampant. It's absolutely rampant in news media. So always watch out for that. So that's like lying through omission. Half-hearted retractions. These things drive me crazy, right? And so when you see people do this, like they'll say something that's completely wrong right off the bat. And then like 3 days later, they'll retract it. But they'll say something wrong and like 10 million people will see it. And then they'll retract it in a segment where like only a couple thousand see it. And it's like, well, that's not a real retraction. If you're doing that, you're just not a reputable organization. Like it should be done in the exact same time frame, the exact same segment, and even maybe double it up, right? You're retracting. Like you need to make sure that people know what you said was wrong.
Never gonna happen.
It just doesn't happen. It's never gonna happen. But I'm just saying,
yeah,
that I think that it's just when you see that, you realize, oh wow, and if nobody points it out to you, you won't realize. You'll be like, well, they retracted. And it's like, no, that's not a real retraction.
Of course not, because they don't, and the newspapers do it also. It's like, you know, they'll get a big fact wrong, and then on the back of page 11A or 11D, they'll we screwed up, and his name is this, you know, and nobody really.
Yeah, and it's I think it's just a really it's. If once you see your news source do something like that, you can't unsee it. Then you're like, what are these people doing?
They're very
and then really watch out for like loaded words or like use of like emotionally charged phrases. Like it's just not objective, like you know, objective reporting. If somebody's like, oh, they decimated this, or oh, these people have been completely distraught, like these types of things. It's like these like qualitative adjectives that they
Well,
add
it's
in
like
there.
the press secretary, when she said, well, like all Democrats are, what, I can't remember what she said, but it was like some ridiculous statement, like all Democrats
Mhm.
are terrorists, Palestinians, and like, I don't know, baby killers. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a ridiculous statement. And I'm like, what?
Uh,
How? I just
it's and again, it's we don't have the media you guys deserve, but it's just the media that we have, right? And so that's why I think news literacy is so important. You got to train yourself to look for stuff. And again, I wish that we could get into other examples. I had a few things I wanted to talk about in this episode. We're not going to get to them, but we'll do another episode down the line where we can maybe get more in depth on it. But anyway, Will, do you have anything that you want to close out with?
Yeah, two things. One is it's just simple. It's like good old Uncle Stone Cold told us, don't trust anybody. Don't trust anybody. Don't trust anybody. Do your own research, right? Now, all these people are trying to sell you a position or an idea. You can only be sure of something if you do it yourself. And then just if you don't care, you don't care. But there are certain things that you should be informed upon because, like we talked about earlier, they can have wide societal effects and can affect your very livelihood. So to do that, and then as I also say every single week, if your tummy hurts, if you get a bellyache, go to the doctor. If you get in trouble like me, start disturbing the peace out there, and they lock you up for your freedom of speech, you're gonna see a lawyer. So you got one life. Go check us out at DancingDragons.CC, DancingDragons.CC, DancingDragons.CC. Find yourself a coach over there today. We've got a ton of different coaches on whatever you can think of. That's the cool thing about Dancing Dragons is we have a coach for every person. Whatever you're trying to accomplish, we have a coach for you. So maximize the time that you have here and let one of us mentor you to get you to that next level. And yeah, I appreciate Coach Rona and Coach Eli, especially for bringing the topic up, and especially for Coach Rona for the return of the good looks and the ratings. So it was much appreciated. It was tough, man. I just had this boomer beating me up for a couple weeks here, and I had no Gen Z representation. You know what? We're Gen Zin. I'm gonna have to send you a couple Zin tins, and we're gonna get the content. Yeah. All right, guys. We'll see you next week and 8:30. And in the meantime, guys, like, share, and subscribe. Find us on all the platforms. DancingDragons.CC. Go over there. Our social medias are there. Give us a like, share, and subscribe, and we will see you next week, folks.
Ciao.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I thought Rona was going to have a closing statement, but okay.
I do have. No, I actually do.
Go ahead.
I thought you were like cutting me off. I'm like, all right, I won't say anything then. Right. Well, my last point is that we have to be aware if we get triggered by something we hear on the news and our emotions are getting like riled up, and right then and there, we know that this is not an objective newscast. They are using specific words. Listen carefully at the words that they use. And this takes a lot of focus. So it's like you can't be chopping onions and getting ready for dinner. Or if you are, just listen carefully as your eyes are crying over the onions. And realize that this is an opinion that as they are telling you an event, they're telling you their opinion of that event. And if you get riled up, it's not an objective news, and find another opinion, and then will make your own opinion. Now I'm done.
Yeah, and just a quick shout out. Just a quick shout out. There are a couple of apps. Okay, go ahead.
No, if you don't know, just ask me. Just follow me on social media, and if you have any questions, I will tell you.
WillKnowsAll.com.
I'll have to buy that domain.
There you go. Go ahead, Eli.
All right. Yeah, and just so everybody knows, there are a couple of apps, and we're not getting paid by these apps, so maybe I shouldn't advertise them. But they have this cool thing. So they have this feature where you get to see they're basically news aggregate apps. And what they'll do is they'll show you this news story, and then they'll show you how many left-leaning news sources are covering it and how many right-leaning. And you get to see like, oh, on the right, they're not talking about this news story at all. So these two apps, they're called Straight Arrow News and Ground News. They have basically similar features. You can check them out, and they might help you like kind of like sift through some of the news stories to see like, oh, wow, you know what? I didn't know that this news story was going, because like the 3 news media companies I use haven't reported on this at all. So it will allow people to fill in some holes that they might be having as far as news coverage goes. So, but anyway, outside of that, you know, thanks for coming by. Remember, go to DancingDragons.CC, and remember to be excellent to each other.